All right, we can quickly get started. Uh, yes, I'll just keep it short. Today and tomorrow are going to be two demo sessions for this RAC course, upcoming RAC course. Uh, if I can quickly brief what I'm going to cover today, we'll start with the introduction. Introduction about your instructor, that is about me, because I am the one who is going to conduct this course end to end, and then followed by very important thing, the course curriculum, what all we're going to cover in this course, and then followed by the course fees, duration, timing, and then a Google Drive link as usual. We'll be accessing all the materials, recordings, everything through Google Drive, and followed by quickly on WhatsApp group for all the communications, all the instructions, all the questions, everything will be shared through WhatsApp group. And then a few of the prerequisites and the payment method, and few of the prerequisites are the minimum requirement for this particular course, and then Oracle certifications, and then some technical discussion. So technical discussion includes your rack architecture, rack networking, and then rack file system, and standalone versus rack, and then few other details we can talk about that. Right, with that, having said that, let's quickly take a look. You might be aware, this is me, uh, Mallikarjun here. I'll be the one who will be delivering this course end to end. Uh, about me, I have around 15 to 16 years of experience in this IT industry, and all these 16 years, dedicatedly, I worked on almost all the Oracle components or Oracle products, starting with database, RAC, data guard, Golden Gate, OEM, Oracle Exadata, Oracle JDLRA, Oracle ODA, Oracle e-business suites, Oracle PeopleSoft, Oracle OBI, and so many other products. So those are my primary area, primary skills, all the Oracle products. And at the secondary skill sets, I do have experience and hands-on exercise on other database like IBM DB2, SAP HANA, MongoDB, MySQL, PostgreSQL. And also I do have other technologies like DevOps and cloud technologies. I worked on Oracle Cloud, AWS, and also other DevOps skills like Terraform, Ansible, and cookbooks, Chef, and so many other technologies, right? So with all these areas of expertise, and if somebody asked what is my major accomplishment, major focus area, so that will be evergreen. Oracle is my primary focus area, and then my primary skill sets. So whatever these other technologies, other skill sets, I learned it based upon my opportunities while working with the some companies. Whenever there is any new opportunities comes, and I'll be the one go-to person, or I'll be the one who will always say yes. I'll take up that challenge, and then I used to enhance my skill sets, and then that will gonna benefit, or that gonna use to help me my long career run. Right, so that's my sincere suggestion to everyone. If you are working as a Oracle DBA, or you have experience in Oracle domain and continue to grow in the same Oracle domain, enhance your skill sets, Oracle DBA, RAC, Data Guard, Golden Gate, OEM, Exadata, EBS, and other engineering systems, Exadata, JDLRA, supercluster, so on, so many things. And you make that as a primary skill set, and parallelly, if you get any other opportunities, to learn other database skill sets, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, MySQL, and DB2, SAP HANA, and take that challenge and learn those technologies and then continue to grow in your career. So once you are a Oracle DBA, learning these other secondary skill sets is quite easy, not that rocket science. You can easily learn those technologies and you can easily support in those fields. Right. So that's a quick about and hope you are all know more than what I just explained. That's a brief introduction I just made. If you're following my YouTube channel, you might be already know more than what I just covered. And I'll be the one who will be delivering this RAC course end to end. There's no other third party person who will be delivering this. All right, that's a quick short intro. And then let's move on to the second point. That's a course curriculum, which is very important aspect. We should understand what all topics will be covered in this course. I'll just open it in browser here. So you can go to my blog here and this RAC training. Under this training, you can go to this RAC. So what we'll be covering in this course? So we'll start with the chapter 1, Introduction to Clusterware. So Introduction to Clusterware will give you fundamental understanding. What are the cluster meaning? And if you go with a simple layman term, cluster is nothing but combination of servers or combination of multiple hosts and communicate each other, act as a one single server. So we'll start with the basic definition, understanding of clusterware and how clusterware communication works and what are the differences between standalone versus rack and what are the advantages and then how cluster services or cluster daemons they will communicate over this network, how the networking architecture works in clusterware. We'll go with the basic definition understanding and followed by we'll start with the actual in-depth understanding of the rack architecture, how this rack architecture works from init daemon to cluster daemons and OS processes and then cluster communications, cluster internals and cluster networking and there are a lot of cluster resources, your OLR, OCR and your lot of cluster daemons and some of them are local to node and some of them are centralized within your cluster. We'll go with the understanding of architecture, networking, your OLR, OCR, and OD disk, and cluster startup sequence. And we have a four level of cluster startup sequence from the init to level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And in that, what all the cluster resource will get started on each of those level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. The very best basic process is init daemon will get started on all the cluster nodes. That init daemon will responsible for starting bunch of cluster resource in level 1, your CSSD, monitor, and Vara root agent, Vara agent. And internally, those Vara root agent, Vara agent is responsible for starting your CRSD, cluster ready service, and so many other resources. And that cluster CRST resource is responsible for starting bunch of other Vora root agent and Vora agent and few other services in level 3. And in level 4, there's so many other cluster resources like VIPs, scan IPs, your scan listener, your ASM, and your disk groups, and your GNS. So many other cluster resources which will be keep on getting started. So those are a basic understanding of your cluster resource that all we go in depth and we'll explore in this chapter number 2 here. And this chapter number 3, chapter number 4, and chapter number 5, and chapter number 6, and 7, and this chapter number 8, these all gonna be continuation of your end-to-end rack setup. In this chapter number 3 here, we do Linux configuration and we do that post configuration, pre-configuration, and then the root partitioning, creation of multiple directories, and creation of users, and pre-configuration of all the prerequisites RPMs. And we do whatever needed for a VM, lab 1 and lab 2 in order to set up your rack. That's a pre-configuration of your Linux setup. And this chapter number 4 is a purely networking. When it comes to rack, you will be wondering there are so many IPs you need it. You need a public IP, you need a private IP, you need a scan IP, you need a VIP. So how to configure those different kind of IPs, public, private, VIP and scan IPs, where we are going to define them, what exactly meaning of those IPs, how they will be resolved through your DNS configuration, how you're going to set up your DNS server, from that DNS server, how you're going to configure your public IP, VIP, scan IP, and your private IP, how you're going to create a shared disk between those two servers, and then how you're going to create your ASM disk on top of those shared disks. So we'll start exploring that, all the networking and the shared disk concept here. And in this chapter number 5, we're going to run all the run cluster pre-checks before you go and then install your clusterware. We go and then configure some of the pre-checks, your system requirement, software requirement, kernel requirement, users and groups, directories, and we do the run cluster pre-checks. According to that, whatever the errors, we're going to fix them, and then we'll proceed with the actual grid setup. Once the grid setup is done, your ASM disk groups all will be ready, and then we'll proceed with the Oracle home installation. We do set up a 2-node rack Oracle home, and once the Oracle home is ready, we proceed with the disk group creation and actual database creation here. So once your disk groups and database is all ready, your complete 2-node rack setup will be done. We'll be going with a 2-node rack setup. Later, we'll go with adding a new node and make it a 3-node rack cluster, 4-node rack cluster, and we're going to go with removing the nodes. That's a further chapters. So with this, we're going to continue with the successful 2-node rack setup. And post that, we'll start with the exploring more on ASM architecture, ASM understanding, ASM storage. And in ASM storage, your mirroring, striping. And when it comes to mirroring, that's your redundancies, external, normal, and high. And then how you're going to add a disk, how you're going to drop a disk, how you're going to create a disk group with the different redundancies, and then how you administrate your ASM instance and ASM disk groups, and how your ASM and database will communicate each other in order to perform your IO reads and writes. Right, we'll explore more in this chapter number 9 on ASM internals, ASM architecture, ASM networking, and ASM communication, and ASM storage, and how ASM will interpret or act as a mediator between your database and your database data files which are under ASM. We'll explore more in depth on ASM part here, and chapter number 10 is full of hands-on on managing, monitoring, administrating your ASM storage, adding a disk, dropping a disk, and your ASM striping, ASM mirroring, and then how you're going to replace the disk, how you're going to understand your disk IOs and the disk performance, and creation of your ASM disk groups with the different redundancies. And then there are a lot of other concepts like your rebalancing, your resilvering, and your redundancies and striping. We'll explore more in depth on your disk group level administration and maintenance and management. Right, chapter number 11 is about your CRSCTL, cluster control utility, and SRVCTL, server control utility. So when to use CRSCTL, when to use SRVCTL, and who can run this CRSCTL, who can run this SRCTL, either the root user, grid user, Oracle user, and with a CRCTL, what all services I can manage. With SRCTL, what all services I can manage. Is the database service, is a cluster service, is it your listener, your database service, and is it your VIPs, is it your scan listener, when to use this CRCTL and how to use them, and what service I can manage with the CRCTL and SIOCTL. With which user I can run this command. What environmental variable I should set it before running this command. So when it comes to rack clusterware, we mostly 90% or 99% we depend upon these two utilities, CRCTL and SRCTL, to do any administration and maintenance. And remaining all will be your SQL plus connect to database and do your database day-to-day activities. But to administration, maintenance, management, we mostly we depend upon these two command line utilities. So we'll explore more on that and restarting your cluster services, database services, listeners, restarting your entire cluster, how to bounce your cluster, what is the best practices, and how to stop and start my database, how to stop and start my listener, how to stop and start my services, how to stop and start my entire cluster, and is it a rolling or is it a non-rolling, is it a complete downtime or is it a node specific downtime, and how to reboot your cluster nodes. And when I say reboot your cluster node, sometime even node eviction will happen. When the node eviction happen, how you can troubleshoot that, which log to look at. So we'll explore more. We'll go internal to this rack architecture or rack fundamentals from the chapter number 11, 12. After chapter number 11, chapter number 12 is your entire cluster services, your OCR, OLR, voting disk, your cluster resource, cluster services, your VIPs, CAN IPs, public IPs, private IPs, management IPs, how the client connection will work. If the client try to connect to your database, whether the connection will go to scan IPs, scan listener, through that your grid listener, your local listener. So we'll understand more on the internal to rack cluster and rack services here. And then followed by your RAC database administration. Your RAC database, SP file, password file, P file, redo log files, arcalog files, control files, your data files, temp, undo, redo, system, sysocs, all those, where they're located, how you can manage them, how you can administrate them. We'll explore a database specific administration here. How you can manage your redo group, how you can manage your undo, how you can manage your table spaces, how you can manage your data files. So it's all about your administration of database. In comparison with a standalone, what difference here? So chapter number 14 is about RMAN backup and recovery. So for the RAC database, how you can do a backup, how you can do a recovery, how you can do a RMAN duplicate, how you can do RMAN active database duplicate, restore, recover versus RMAN clone, and then various recovery scenario. My control file lost, how can I restore? My data files are lost, how can I restore? My redo logs are lost, how can I restore? My single data file lost or all the data file lost, and my database crashed, my redo logs are corrupted, my archive logs are corrupted, my password file is corrupted, my SP file is corrupted. What is the impact and how I can recover each of these individual files? We'll explore only this rack specific RMAN backup and recovery. Your L0 backup, L1 backup, your incremental backups, your backup strategy, that is your RPO and RTO. Very, very important when it comes to your business continuity plan. Your RPO and RTOs are very, very important two aspect with respect to your backup. RPO is your recovery point object, RTO is your recovery time objective. How quickly you can recover your database and how much data you are willing to lose in case of any crash. So we'll explore more on that, all those RMAN concept, RMAN backup and recovery strategies, including your RPO and RTO here in the chapter number 14. Chapter number 15 is about listeners. So when it comes to rack, there will be so many listeners. So you have a ASM listener, you have a grid listener, you have a scan listener, you have a remote listener, you have a database listener, you have a local listener. Why these many listeners? Almost six or seven listeners. How that client communication will work? Do we really need these many listeners? ASM listener, grid listener, your ASM net listener, your scan listener, database listener, remote listener, local listener, almost six or seven listeners. Are all these listeners are mandatory or must? And how the client communication will go through all these listeners? Is it go to scan? Is it go to grid listener? Is it go to your ASM net listener? Is it go to your local listener? Is it go to your database listener? Or is it go to your remote listener? How exactly the flow will work? And we'll explore more on that how the client communication will work. And then once this client communication works, then how this failover will happen, how this scan will work, what exactly meaning of scan, how the scan communication work, how scan is able to do a load balancing, how scan is able to provide your failover with help of VIPs. How what exactly mean of failover, what exactly mean of load balancing, what exactly mean of your high availability. We'll explore more along with this listener. And then chapter number 16 is about multi-tenant architecture. I used to say this in our database course, multi-tenant architecture is must. Starting with the 21C onwards, it's all about multi-tenant architecture, no more normal database architecture. So if you already worked on the database part, you should know your fundamental database architecture and you should know your multi-tenant architecture. We'll explore more on this multi-tenant architecture with respect to RAC. What difference this multi-tenant architecture with respect to standalone and rack and your CDBs and PDB understanding, your installation and cloning of your pluggable databases, how a end user will connect to CDB, how a end user will connect to a PDB, how you can configure your TNS and listener SQL net data file with respect to CDBs and PDBs, right? And then you can configure your rack CDB database and you can configure your rack PDB database and you can configure your services at CDB level, services at your PDB level at your cluster side, and then how the end user can connect to your PDB databases with using those cluster services, right? And then followed by chapter number 17 is your ACFS, that's your ASM cluster file system, and how you can create that, configure that, administrate that, and manage that, and then what are the advantages of this ACFS file system. We'll explore more on this. And then RAC database versus RAC one node database. In RAC, we have these two types of databases, RAC or RAC one node. We'll explore more on that. There's the licensing cost comes into picture here, RAC versus RAC one node. And when it comes to RAC one node, we have this online relocation. You can do online relocation for your services, your instances, and databases. We'll do this RAC versus RAC one node and how we can administrate, how we can relocate those services, including your database instances. And then patching, very, very important. Patching is one of the common activity any DBA has to perform because Oracle will releases quarterly 4 patches, Jan, April, July, and October. And irrespective of whether it's a standalone database, your RAC database, your RAC with the data guard, a standalone data guard, we have to perform a patching. And we'll understand here in the RAC, rolling patching, non-rolling patching, hybrid patching, OPatch Auto, and your grid cluster patching, your Oracle home patching, and your database patching, and how to minimize the downtime for RAC patching. And there's a out of place patching. What exactly out of place patching? We'll explore more on this in this with respect to RAC database about this entire patching exercise here. And your RAC database upgrade, how you can perform your RAC database upgrade, what are the pre-checks, what are the post-checks, how you can perform your clusterware upgrade. I have a 12C ASM and clusterware setup. How can I upgrade it to 19C? I have 12C database, RAC database. How can I upgrade it to 19C database? We have 5-6 database upgrade method. I can navigate to manual method, GUI method, DBUA, your Perl script, shell script, and you have auto upgrade. With respect to RAC, how you can perform what exactly difference between standalone database upgrade versus RAC database upgrade? What are the pre-checks and what are the post-checks? And if my database is 1 TB, upgrade will take 1 hour. And if my database is 10 TB, how much time will it take? Is it 1 hour or is it 10 hours? So how to estimate that timings? and what are the best practices for your database upgrade. Is it a online activity? Is it an offline activity? Does it need a downtime? So we'll explore more on that best practices, pre-checks and post-checks with respect to your RAC database upgrades. And then node addition and node removal. As I just mentioned, we'll initially configure two node rack. Later we can add third node, make it as a three node rack. And then we can add one more, we can make it as a four node rack. And after that, once it becomes four node rack, we can remove one of the node and make it three node rack. And later you can remove one more node, make it as a two node rack. So we'll live practical demonstration on node addition, node removal. What are the again pre-checks? What are the post-checks? And then so many fundamental concepts with respect to node addition and node removal we'll explore here in chapter number 21. Chapter number 22, you are converting your single instance database to rack instance. What are the method? And there'll be multiple options. You can do convert single instance to rack instance, DBCA, your enterprise manager, OEM, or config, or even you can do manually adding multiple instances. We'll explore converting this single instance to rack instance. Along with this, your RMAN concept. Along with RMAN concept itself, we can cover this converting your single instance to rack instances, how quickly you can perform that, and what are the best practices. Right, so with that, we'll explore more on that. Resume writing and cover letter. I'll go over my own resume and cover letter and what all the points you need to include in your resume and cover letter. Make it very strong in the market. And then followed by we will cover interview questions and answers. We will be having a centralized repository where we'll be keep updating interview questions and answers, scenario based and direct interview questions and answers. And as and when we continue with each of this chapter, we'll be covering what are the most frequently or commonly asked interview questions. And also we'll be having those centralized repositories for interview questions and answers. We're going to go over that. And post that, chapter number 15, as usual, it's a mock interview. Even we will conduct same thing after database course. This is subjected to your interest. If you're interested, you can register for this mock interview. I'll be connecting with you one-to-one, 30 to 45 minutes. I'll be driving this as a real-time interview. I'll be asking questions and you'll be answering as if you're attending a real-time interview. So with that, I'm gonna assess you or I'm gonna measure how much you prepared and what best you could have done it in that interview. So I'll be providing a feedback after that post-interview. But again, it's not a mandatory thing. It is subjected to your interest. All right, so that's a quick update. I just gone through with a brief overview, but there'll be much more topics to cover in each of these sections. But I just put few of the high level points. But when we start with the actual course, there'll be much more topics or much more points to cover. We'll explore it in our actual regular classes. Right. With that, I'm going to take a pause here for a minute. If anyone has any questions so far, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask or you can use this chat window here to post your questions. All right. I'll just ping this URL, the course curriculum URL in the chat here. Please take a note and then you can explore it whenever you get a time. Right. With that, if no questions, if I quickly go further about the course duration, timing, and fees. If you go to my blog and click on this more information about this course here, you're gonna go into that current and upcoming batch. Upcoming batch is the one what we are gonna start here. If you click on this upcoming details, which has all the details whatever I covered here so far. So this is what your course curriculum, course timing, and course duration looks like. So it's not a Monday, it will be Thursday and then Friday. Sorry, my bad. I went with a different link. So here is the 12th March. So that's for the database course, what we started last week. This is for the RAC course. So if I go here, RAC course, and then you can take a look here. Right, so I'll just put this one actual course little down here. So this is the weekday batch. We'll be taking a 2 days in a week, Thursday and Friday in Indian time zone. It will be Wednesday and Thursday in EST time zone. And then timing will be 8:30 a.m. IST to 11:30 a.m. IST, 3 hours on Thursday and 3 hours on Friday. And in EST time zone, it will be Wednesday and Thursday. That will be 10 p.m. EST to 1 a.m. EST on Wednesday and Thursday, 3 hours. That's a course duration and the course weekday course. And with 7 weeks, we should be able to complete this entire course. And this course is a paid training, which will be 15,000 Indian rupees or 185 US dollar. Will be conducted over a Zoom session. We'll be covering this 19C version. So today and tomorrow, 12th March and this 13th March are the two demo sessions. And post that, we'll be starting this actual course on 19th March, next week. 19th March, Thursday in EST, in IST, 8:30 a.m. In EST, it will be 18th March, Wednesday at 10 p.m. EST time. I know in EST it will be little late. It will be midnight for them. And try to attend the live classes. And in case if you are not able to attend these live classes, no worries. We'll be giving this Google Drive access. With that Google Drive access, you can watch the recordings. In this Google Drive access, I'll be granting access on Google Drive link 1, Google Drive link 2, Google Drive link 3, Google Drive link 4. Link 1, which will contain all the course materials, PPTs, lab exercise, your VMs, all the workbook, and many more things. And in the link 2, we'll be providing all the softwares, tools, interview questions, automation script, and many more. And in this Google Drive link 3, all the previous batch recordings where you can go and then prepare your own phase. You can watch them in advance. Before attending the live classes, you can watch them in advance so that when you're attending the live classes, you can interact more, you can ask more questions. Or you already know that RAC concept little bit, you're already working on a RAC expert and you want to complete this course within a week. You can go and then watch all the previous batch recordings. Those are live recordings, live sessions will be recorded and then uploaded in the Google Drive. And you are appearing for some upcoming interview, you want to prepare and you want to become more expert in that. So in that scenario also you can go and then watch this all the previous batch recordings. Right? Many more advantages over there. Link 4 is the current batch recordings. Whatever daily sessions will be recorded and uploaded into Google Drive and you can go and then watch them. You want to reframe or you want to revisit one more time, or you can not able to attend the live classes, you can go and then watch these recorded sessions every day. Whatever the sessions I'll conduct Thursday and Friday or Wednesday and Thursday, those sessions will be recorded and uploaded on the same day immediately after the class. You can go and then watch them. As a quick link here, if I get it, link 1, right? So this is a link 1. You can see all those various directories which will be referred as and when we continue with our regular course. Your lab exercise, your course materials, PPTs, and your some ebooks, DR document, RMN related, so many folders, and your ready VMs here for your rack. So which all will be covered. These all will be explored as and when we continue with our regular classes. That's a link 1. Link 2 is about your all the software informations, all the interview questions, and your all the tools. If I can get that link to here, um, right, this will be your link to. I can add it here. Right. This is your link one and this is your link two. So link one is all about PPTs, workbook, lab exercise. Link two is about your all the tools for DBS, softwares, your automation script, your ISO image, interview questions and answers, so many other things. So if we go with the link three, that is your previous batch recordings. So as I just mentioned, previous batch recording will help you to study on your own phase, prepare yourself in advance. And if you're not able to attend the live classes, you can watch the current batch recording or previous batch recording, or you're preparing for any interview, you can go and then watch this previous batch recordings. So if I can get quickly link three here. So this is a link three. You can see all these previous batch recordings, the recordings as well as the associated notepad. If you see here recordings, just try to open that and you can watch the recordings on the Google Drive itself. Or you can, while watching the recordings, you can refer the notepad, whatever the notepad I am using it, whatever the command I am filing it in my lab, all those output will be recorded here. While you are watching the recordings, you can open the respective notepad and you can practice it on your own. Right, and then finally your link four is it's a current batch recording. Every day, whatever the sessions will be recorded and uploaded. So that will be these are like useful. And then there'll be a lot of questions. People are pinging me, what is the Google Drive access and all. So these are lifetime accessible materials. Even you can go and then download this material into your local laptop. There's no restriction on that. Let's say here I want to download this video. You can go and then download it. Or you want to download this entire directory, go and then download this entire directory. There's no restriction on that. And you can make use of that by reading or by watching the recordings from the directly Google Drive link, or even you can download it locally into your laptop. No restriction on that. Right. That's a quick update on Google Drive link. And then going to the next step is your WhatsApp group. All the registered student will be added to this WhatsApp group. We have already 4 students who are enrolled for this course. So we'll be added to this WhatsApp group. They are all part of the WhatsApp group, and I already granted access on this Google Drive from last 1 week or last 6, 7 days. So they are already started watching this previous batch recordings, and they are started asking a lot of questions from last 3, 4 days. So who are registered for this course after making payment, so I'll be adding them to this WhatsApp group. All the communications happens through this WhatsApp group. Any questions, queries, or any help or any assistance, everything will be discussed on this WhatsApp group. Provided if there's any personal communication you want to talk to me, you can call me on my cell or ping me one to one. Otherwise, any technical discussion, any questions, queries, or any help or assistance, we pretty much depend upon this WhatsApp group so that it will be benefited for everyone in that group. Let's say you attended some interview, you're not able to answer few of the questions, you can post those questions over there. I'll be answering them. Or whenever I continue with the live classes, I'll be taking up those questions and I'll answer those questions. So that it will be benefited to everyone who are in that group. Or you are working on some activity on a company and you need some assistance, or you're stuck and you know you need some guidance. You can just take a screenshot. What is the issue? You can post it in our group. I'll be taking a look and then I'll be assisting you what exactly the issue and then how you can proceed further. So any assistance on that or any help or any entry questions and answers or you need any guidance, so everything will be discussed on this WhatsApp group. Again, this Google Drive link will be available for a lifetime access. Provided if there's any changes, I'll be updating you in the group. And if otherwise, it will be available forever. And WhatsApp group will be there forever for any assistance or any communication or any help. And provided if you are keeping it active and then making interaction and asking questions and queries, so I'll be keeping this group active and then I'll be assisting over there. If nobody is active and then everyone are unresponsive, then I'll be going ahead and then may delete that WhatsApp group over a period of time. All right, so with that, quickly move on to the payment method. As I mentioned, this each batch will be having a limited students. Already we have 4 students enrolled for this course. And if you are interested and you want to continue with this course, make sure that you ping me on my WhatsApp number, or you can ping me on my cell number. Here's my WhatsApp number and here's my cell number. I'm gonna further provide you a guidance about payment processing and payment method. I'm gonna ping this WhatsApp number and cell number in the chat here. You can take a look, make a note, and you can ping me one to one. I'll assist you with the further payment processing and registration process. All right, with that, I'm going to take a pause here for a minute before I proceed further with the few more topics. So, any questions so far on whatever point I covered about your instructor? That's about pretty much me, what I just covered. About the course curriculum, we went ahead in brief about all the topics what we're going to cover. And there may be some questions here. Do we cover some performance tuning related topics? Do we cover any OEM related topics here? Do we cover anything about the licensing or the TDE, wallet, transparent data encryption? No, those are advanced course. Your TDE itself is one separate course. Your OEM itself is one separate course. Your Golden Gate itself is one separate course. Your performance tuning itself is one separate course. So we'll not be covering anything of this advanced topic like your TDE, transparent data encryption, and your OEM, Golden Gate. So whatever best recommended, whatever as a RAC admin, what all topic need to be covered in a real time work experience. I tried put down all those topics. I created this curriculum, which is very well washed curriculum. And on top of that, if all of the students interested in a specific topic, let's say you want to cover some basics of wallets, how to create a wallet, how to enable the encryption. So one or two topics I can take it at the end of this course. But otherwise, whatever topics I formed here in this course pretty much covers everything as a RAC DB and RAC expert, what you are working day to day for any client. Based upon my 16 years of experience, I formed this course as a RAC DBA. What all day to day activities you are supposed to do, everything is put down here and then prepared this course here. All right. With that, we just covered this course duration, timing, fee structure, and then we just covered about this Google Drive link, which is very, very helpful. I got very good feedback about this Google Drive access and especially this previous batch recordings what I'm providing in advance, so that many students are going ahead and learning and watching those videos and they're becoming self-expert in advance. And then when they attend the live classes, and they'll be more interactive because they already watch the recordings, they already know the basics gist of that particular topic. And then when I'm covering the live classes, they're asking more doubts, more questions, and then making the class interactive. And that is beauty of that. So if there's more questions, more interaction, and even I'll be so much happy to answer and take those questions. And if sometimes if I'm not able to recall or not able to catch up that particular questions or concept, I'll take some time. Maybe in the next class, I'll go out and then cover that. Right. So that is where many students are happy about that and then learning and getting the things on right time. Along with when I'm covering the each and every topic, they're in sync with me and they'll be covering because they already watched this previous batch recording and they're self learning. Right. Again, our other important is WhatsApp group what we just covered. There'll be a lot of questions, queries, a lot of interview questions and a lot of assistance here. So with one student having one doubt and discussing on the WhatsApp group, that will be helpful for many students in the group. Again, that is not only this WhatsApp group is not only dedicated for this course, this will be always there for even after completion of the course. Any assistance, help, or any guidance or any interview questions and answers, everything will be discussed over here. That will be benefited or helpful for many students in this group here. Right, I just talked about payment method. Again, you can ping me or call me on my cell number. I can assist you further with the registration process and the guidance. All right. With that, if no questions so far, very important aspect is the prerequisites, which is very, very important before you enroll this course. Before meeting these prerequisites, you should be able to understand what basics you should learn. So you should be knowing about your fundamentals. You should be aware of Linux, or you should be aware of Windows, how to log into your Windows server, start your VMs. Once you start your VMs, what are the basic commands? CD, SU Oracle, and mkdir, pwd, cat, more, tail. You should know the basics of your Linux command, basics on Windows, and basics of your SQLs. So those are must things. Without these fundamental things, and moreover, your basics database understanding, your database architecture, your instance, your database, your data files, your SMON, PMON, Debrater, Logrator, your SGA, PGA. You should be knowing your database course. This part of our database course will be covering this. If you know these all things, then you can go and then enroll for this RAC course. If you don't know this basics, then you should not register for this RAC course. Because the moment I start explaining about RAC architecture, and then if you know, the moment I say database instance, and you should know what is instance meaning by this time, because that's part of your database course, database fundamentals, you should be aware of that. And you should not ask what is instance. And again, the moment I say instance is a combination of your memory and background process. And then you should not say what are the background process, what are the mandatory background process. Those are all part of your fundamental things in database. You should be aware of that. Then only you can enroll for this course. Right? These are fundamentals you should be aware, and then post that you can go for this RAC course, because RAC is more than what you learnt in your fundamentals. RAC is based upon that fundamental database concept, your instance database and database architecture, your background process, SGAPGA. On top of that, you're exploring more on that cluster level with respect to RAC. So those are the must things you should be aware of. And more than that, this is your hardware requirement. You should have minimum 20 GB RAM, and then you should have minimum 150 GB SSD hard disk, because we will be setting up a lab on your own laptop or desktop using this virtual box. For that, you should have minimum 20 GB RAM and 150 GB hard disk. So I got many pings from last 2 3 days. So I have only 8 GB RAM, I have only 10 GB RAM, I have only 16 GB RAM. Can I set up lab? No. Even if you try to set up, your laptop itself will crash or your VM itself will crash. So you should have minimum 20 GB RAM, so that you can do a 2 node rack setup and you can continue to do your day-to-day hands-on exercise. So again, there are few students called me yesterday or day before yesterday, and they asked, so I don't have a lab, can I still continue this course because I'm studying it for my interview purpose, or I'm already working in my client environment supporting day-to-day rack uh, administration. So, but for now, I don't have a laptop. I'm planning to buy it in next 1 month or next 2 months. But still, I want to enroll for this course. Yeah, as long as you're already working and you need to explore knowledge at this time, go and then register for this course. But until unless you do your hands-on lab exercise, you'll not be perfect or you'll not be confident enough on this rack course. So that is my sincere advice. First, try to have your lab set up so that you can practice along with the daily what I cover the topics. So still you want to enroll this course without any lab exercise for interview purpose, or you want to enhance your skill for now. You're planning to buy this hardware in next upcoming days. You can go and then enroll for this course and later you can practice it. Right, so that's about the prerequisites, the minimum requirement. So which are very, very important. You can, once you meet this, just go and then register for this course. Right. And then best recommendations. So what I what I would like, uh, go for a minimum 32 GB RAM or minimum 64 GB RAM if you are planning to buy a new laptop or new desktop. And my advice is always go for laptop because you can carry anywhere and you can practice. Your labs are all with you. If you buy desktop, then you have to set up on your own uh, in your own house or in your room, and you have to practice only where you set up your desktop. If you have a laptop, you can carry anywhere. You can practice it your own labs. So buy any laptop, best advice, with a 32 GB RAM or 64 GB RAM, and you can go for your minimum 250 GB to 1 TB SSD hard disk, and you can go for a CPU, a 2 to 4 CPU, or even 8 CPU, or you can just go with a 2 to 8 CPU. That's more than enough. And processor, any latest one, i9 or i13 or whatever the latest processor you have it. But again, there's no specific brand, Dell, Lenovo, or whatever it is. But if you're meeting this criteria, then go for whatever the brand you prefer. Right. So there are other questions. What I got in my WhatsApp ping. Is this course based upon Linux and 19C version? Yes, this course is based upon Linux platform and will be covering 19C version. So there's no Windows. So you might ask questions, or I have a client where I'm working on a rack on Windows system. So do we cover anything on rack? No, will not be covering. So or else there may be a question that AIX. So my client is on AIX or my client is on Solaris or my client is on RHEL. So these are all your Linux flavors: RHEL, Solaris, AIX, SUSE, Ubuntu, or your HP UX, all are Linux flavors. Whatever we're going to cover here, Linux, we'll be covering in OEL, Oracle Enterprise Linux. So whatever this course which we covered in this OEL, Oracle Enterprise Linux, it's the same as AX, Solaris, and RHL. But we'll not be covering specific to that AX or Solaris. Or if you're looking for Windows, no, this course is not based on Windows. This is based upon Linux. Once you learn this Linux OEL, it will be same as your AX, Solaris, RHL, SUSE, Ubuntu. But here and there, one or two basic minor command changes, but otherwise it remains same. So again, other questions what I came, is this rack installation based upon Windows OS? Yes, it's based upon Windows OS. Can I do this rack setup on Mac? No, I don't have a Mac setup, but whatever the lab I have it. Lab meaning if you go to Google Drive link here, in this link one, whatever I mentioned about this ready VM, I have this Oracle Lab 1, Lab 2, Lab 3, and then we have this Oracle 12C rack setup with ASM. We have this Oracle 19C rack setup with ASM. We have this 19C rack setup with ASM and database. We have 19C rack setup for ASM and DB with Oracle user. There are so many rack lab setup here, and there are empty VMs here. You can use these VMs, and these VMs will work only for Windows, and you don't have Mac. Mac, you can do your own lab setup, and then you can set up your own rack or clusterware on top of that Mac. Right, and then other questions or other ping what I got. Who can attend this course? So the simple answer is any DBA prior knowledge with a 1 year experience, 2 year experience, 5 year experience, 10 year experience, or 15 years of experience. With the prior DBA knowledge, anyone can attend this. If you don't have prior DBA knowledge, then don't attend this course because you'll not be able to understand what I'm teaching. All right. Um, I'll take a pause here for a minute or for a questions. If anyone has any questions so far on these prerequisites or anything on the Google Drive access or the WhatsApp group. or the payment process, or the course durations, timing. Right? So if no questions, I'll just continue further. I will talk about few of the basics for next 1 hour, and then we'll continue tomorrow. All right. I'll take it as a no questions. Let's continue with the Oracle certificates. What is Oracle certificates? How important they are? So there's a DBA certificate and there's a RAC certificate. So DBA certificate, if you are having 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 years of experience, you should complete first DBA certificate. And once you become 4 5 years of experience, then you have to complete this RAC certificate. Very, very important. Your DBA is nothing but your standalone database. RAC is nothing but your cluster, multiple hosts clustered together, make your RAC database. Any client you take or any customer you work, they run their production database, either standalone database or they can run database in the RAC database. Run their application with RAC database. Any one of that. These are fundamental things. Whether you work on Oracle Exadata, you work on Oracle EBS, you work on Oracle Supercluster, Oracle ODA or any client, their database either standalone or RAC. So you have to complete this certificate so that your resume will be stronger in the market. So for this DBA certificate, you need to complete your 19C OCP certificate. For that, you have two exams. You have this 19C admin 1 and we have this 19C admin 2, and which will cost you around 20K Indian rupees. You need to complete these two certificate and get this OCP certificate as a DBA. Then your resume will be stronger in the market. And if you're working as a RAC with a 4+ years of experience, then you need to complete this RAC and ASM certificate, and that will again cost you 20,000 Indian rupees. So if I quickly open this certificates here, 19C admin 1, 19C admin 2. So if you go here and explore on this, review your exam topics, click on this plus. So these are your fundamental understanding, your database architecture, managing your instance, and your users role privileges, and your database admin workshop, and then your moving data, managing your storage, accessing your database, and configuring your listeners, managing your tablespace data files, and right, so many things here. That is for your admin 1 exam. And admin 2 exam, again go here, review your exam topics, your CDB, PDB, and your backup, and your PDBs here, multi-tenant architecture, your backup strategy again, and your restore recovery concept, your RMAN, and duplicate, and your recovery, and your basics of grid here, and patching, upgradation. Right, those are your basics of database. You have to complete that. And coming to this RAC certificate is this course. Once you complete this course, you should be able to complete this RAC certificate. If I open this one here, expand your RAC architecture, installation and configuration, administration, and your RAC monitoring tools, your high availability, your upgradation and patching, RAC one node, and your multi-tenant architecture, and your cluster architecture, grid architecture, and management, troubleshooting, right? ASM, right? Like so many things. Whatever here will be covered in this particular course. So these are must certificate for DBAs. And on top of that, you can go with any other specialization. Let's say after learning these two fundamental DBA certificate, after getting this RAC certificate, you can go for exploring more on Exadata, EBS, OBI, Golden Gate, OEM, Supercluster. Whatever these advanced technologies you are going to learn, these are all based upon either standalone database or RAC database. So learning these two and getting certificate over there is must. Post that you can explore another advanced concept or technologies. And then if you want to go with the some cloud technologies, you can go for Oracle Cloud, AWS, Azure, GCP, and that will be something deviation from your database skill set. So you want to go or explore on your cloud architecture part, you can take a look on this. OCI as a first preference, Oracle Cloud, and then AWS, Azure, and GCP. So if you are interested in networking, storage, and then I learned so much things in database, I'm enough of that. I want to explore more things, then go for this cloud technologies. So there are few questions uh, which commonly asked by my friend circle or my students. Uh, is the cloud technology making an impact on the DBA role? So obviously no. DBA role is evergreen. So whatever technology comes and goes off, so will not be impact on DBA role. DBA will be forever. Is there impact on this AI, ChatGPT, or Gen AI, agentic AI making an impact on DBA role? Answer is no. There's no impact. And if you think of last 20 years, 20 years back, there'll be a big data or there'll be a Hadoop. 20 years back, there's a big data and Hadoop concept came, and many people says, okay, there's an impact on DBA role. And after 10 years, there were no concept or nobody is talking about this Hadoop and big data nowadays. And let's say last 10 year back, sorry, it didn't back up. 10 year back, this cloud technology came in. So last 10 year back, last 10 year or 8 year back, cloud technology came, and then everyone are talking about cloud migration now. Everyone are going to cloud, and there's impact on DBA role. And nowadays you can talk very hardly few people talk about cloud. That's all gone. And nowadays, whatever you talk, whomever you ask, they all talk about AI, Gen AI, or they talk about nowadays this cloud code or your chat GPT. So is there an impact using this AI, Gen AI, cloud or chat GPT? Are there any impact on our DBA role? No, this is the latest technology which came in last few years, last 2 3 years, and that is booming now. Maybe that will stand for another 7 8 years or another 5 9 10 years, and after that another new technology will come in. So all these technologies, like it's kind of a boom. Like once in a while they will come. Every every 8 to 10 years, new technologies comes, and they're gonna make impact, and then they'll go off. But our DBA role is evergreen. DBA needed forever. Any of your backup, your recovery, performance tuning, user management, administration, and whatever day-to-day activities, DBAs are must, and that will be there forever. No impact on any new technologies or any cloud technologies or any of the latest technologies. Those will not take off our DBA role. With some of the roles or some of the day-to-day activities are automated with these latest technologies, but DBA job should be there forever. Right, so that's a quick update or common discussion. We get it more often. And how about DevOps? Again, go back more than 25, 30 years or more than 15 years or 20 years. DevOps is other concept. So many people will say, is it must a DB has to learn this DevOps concept? So DevOps is not or nothing much. It's just automation. So you can learn few of the concept in DevOps, like you can go and then learn shell scripting or Python scripting or cookbooks, chefs or Terraform. And you can do some of the things, day-to-day activities, advantages. Or you can do automation using those your learnings. You no need to learn Java, entire DevOps like Jenkins and CI/CD. So many concepts they will come in, but those are not useful for DBS. But learning the DevOps, few of the concept like your Terraform, Shell script, Python scripting, Perl scripting, and Kubernetes. Those will help you for your day-to-day automation. You can do your DBA task, day-to-day task. You can make it automation. That's one of the advantages. Because of that, you can learn few concept in DevOps, not all concept of DevOps. Right, and then other questions comes, which technologies or which cloud technology is good for DBS? Give me 1 second here. All right, sorry for that. Okay. What I was talking now, so cloud, which came back and now no more boom on that, but still few customers are migrating and running their workload in cloud as well as on premises. If at all as a DBA, I want to learn cloud technologies. Which one is best? The best preference, you are a DBA, you want to continue in the DBA domain, go for OCA. Because OCA is the one which will support both the standalone and RAC databases. Where it comes to your Azure or AWS, there you don't see it, it won't support your RAC. It supports only for the standalone databases. So maybe in future they can support for RAC as well. But my advice is go for Oracle Cloud as a first preference. And also I'm enough of my database skill set, database technologies. I want to switch to some new technologies. Then go for your AWS architect role. And if you want to go to AWS architect role, then you have to learn a lot of networking, lot of storage concepts. Like, once you want to become architect role, there'll be a lot of networking concept will come into picture, like, firewall, your NAT gateways, your internet gateways, your VPCs, and a lot of things, your firewall route table, and your TCP, UDP. There are a lot of concept you have to understand, and as well as storage level, your hot tier, cold tier, your archival, your S3 bucket. So many storage level concept, networking level concept. You try to explore more on that and then try to switch from DBA career to your cloud admin career. And again, there will be a lot of market openings in those areas. All right. Then other concept, we other common questions I get it in my regular discussion with my friend circle or my students. I have a career gap. Can I get a fake experience? Let's say I have a gap in career. Maybe after college, I did not get a job for 2 years. So after college, I got a job. I worked for 5 years, and later I got a layoff. And after that, next 2 years, I did not get any job. And later, I'm getting offer. So it is in between your experience, or if it is after the college, I have some gap in my career. Can I use a fake experience? Can I use a fake experience letter? So my suggestion is, if you use a fake experience, any company you are going to join, they do something called auditing. That is the background verification check. In that, you're gonna always get caught, and they'll be able to identify whether it's a fake or genuine. So once they find out it's a fake, then they can black mark your resume or your profile, and they're gonna give a negative impact, and immediately they'll terminate. Right? I don't entertain going with a fake experience if you have a career gap. In case if you have a career gap, always get some reference within your friend circle. just get some reference, go into referral and then join their companies, or your uncle is working or your aunt is working in some organization, and get some recommendation from them and then try to join their company and then work for 1 year, 2 years, and later you can try to switch it. But with this career gap, going through fake experience, that is not a good idea, right? So that's why you need to be very cautious whether I can put a fake experience or not. And many people will argue me back. I have a good company where they give a genuine experience letter, fake certificate, so I can use them. That's all depend upon your risk. So you still want to go with that fake experience and then get a new job, go ahead and do that. But 99% there may be a chances you will get caught during the background verification. But rather than, I always suggest to go with some reference, get a job so that you will be in a safe zone. And later, after working 1 or 2 years in that company, you can switch it and nobody will consider that career gap. If you don't have a job and you have a career gap, then getting a job is very, very difficult. But currently, you are having a job, switching that job is very easy. Right. Hope that's clear so far, so good. Again, I'll take a pause if you have any questions. No questions. All right. I'll take it as a no. Let's switch to some technical discussion. So far, what we covered is all general topic, some good advice or general topic what we used to discuss. Um, Now, let's talk a little bit on one or two concept, RAC and networking, and then some of the fundamental concept. Right. Before I go with this one, I'll just take a few questions in the chat here. Uh, Jyoti is pinging me. Can I take this course again? I have done my course in 2024. Yeah, Jyoti, you just ping me on my cell or WhatsApp number. I'll assist you further on that. Right. And then Nirmala is asking how to make a payment. I just covered that one about the payment processing here. You just ping me on my cell number and my WhatsApp number here. I'll further assist you and guide you for about registration and the payment process. Yeah, you can get in touch with me one to one in my WhatsApp number or cell. Okay, Jishan is asking how to manage 3 month notice period. That is um one of the drawback in IT industry. Many companies who looking for a new candidate, they always try to get a candidate who is willing to join within a month. But when a guy joined to a company ABC, but the same company who is expecting to join within a month, same company will be having a 3 month of notice period, which is a pain part, which is a drawback in IT industry. So, uh, 3 month notice period is obviously one of the drawback, as I mentioned. What you need to tackle, what you need to do in that case, you need to put your profile open to work in LinkedIn and update your profile in Naukri or Indeed or where or the job portal. Try to get a job as a one of the backup job, and then you can put down your paper. Once you put down your paper, then you can go for searching a new job opportunities, which is relevant to your work experience, relevant to your current knowledge, and then as and when your notice period will be reducing like 2 months, 1 month, then you'll be getting more interview calls, and then you can look for your a dream job. That's where you need to tackle it. Like if you have I'm working in a company ABC. I'm looking for a dream company called XYZ, and if you say I have 3 month of notice period, then straight away they will not uh, you know offer, or they will not go with you because they look for a candidate who will join quickly within 15 days, within 30 days, or max 45 days or 60 days. 3 month, 90 days is very likely the HR will reject in the first place. But some companies, they will be thinking, okay, in the future, I'll be getting this project and they will start looking for a new candidate. So you have to get one backup job. With that, you need to start looking for the new job as and when your notice period will keep reducing 60 days, 30 days, then you can look for a good companies, which is your dream companies. Right, yeah, that is one of the pain part I can understand. 90 days notice period, most of the companies will follow that 19 days notice period, but they expect candidate to join within a month. That's that. That's where many of us will lose the opportunities. All right. Quickly next, go to some technical discussion. What I'm gonna talk here. Um, let's say I talked about um, in our database course. In our database fundamental architecture also, last 2 weeks back, I took a database course. We started a new database course, and there also we started with the same understanding, same difference between standalone and rack. What I just covered over there, as part of the database course, or before that, like your senior DBA versus junior DBA. And the guy with 1 to 4 years of experience will mention or call them as a junior DBAs. The guys with 4 plus 5, 6 years, 10 years, those are like senior DBAs. As a junior DBA, you should be working as a DBA on all the standalone database. As a senior DBA, 4 plus of years of experience, you should be working as a RAC databases. So a DBA versus RAC is nothing but standalone versus RAC. As part of our database course, we'll be covering a standalone database. In our DBA course, we cover this complete standalone course. Standalone without ASM, standalone with ASM. Two types of databases in standalone. Where your database, DB database running under OS file system, that's without ASM. Where TestDB database running under ASM storage. ASM is automatic storage management provided by Oracle. ASM stands for automatic storage management provided by Oracle, which is a combination of your instance and ASM storage, where your database is residing under that ASM storage. In our DBA course, we'll be covering these databases. And then as part of RAC, in this course here, we'll be covering this RAC database. RAC database has a RAC database and other type of database is RAC one node database. These two will be covered in this RAC course. So a default, this RAC database can run on ASM storage or NFS storage. This again RAC one node database, ASM storage or NFS storage. So here in standalone we have without ASM, with ASM. Here in this RAC database, RAC one database are run on ASM storage or run on NFS storage. The fundamental concept here is Oracle always recommends to run on ASM storage. Why? Oracle will always, whether you run standalone database, run on ASM. Whether you run your RAC database, run on ASM storage. Why? There will be a lot of advantages. ASM has a lot of advantages. You can get with ASM mirroring, redundancies, external normal high, striping, Oracle restart, high IO performance, read and write, your ACFS, and then many more. These all will be covered as part of this course. So because of all these advantages, Oracle will always recommend you to run your database or workload on ASM storage, not on your NFS or not on your OS storage. Right? So as part of this, RAC course will be covering this RAC database and RAC 1 database. And then this is one thing, Oracle always recommends you to run on ASM storage. And then Oracle always recommends to run database as RAC, not on the standalone. Why RAC? So because RAC has its own advantages. The main advantage is your high availability, failover, and load balancing. And then Oracle recommends always follow MA architecture. What is this MA architecture? Maximum availability architecture. That's why you have to always run your database as a RAC. What is this MA architecture? Run prod DB with a RAC and then configure DR DB for prod, configure RAC DRDB for prod RAC database. So you have to configure production database as a RAC and also configure DR database as a RAC. That's your MA architecture. So if I quickly cover this one, MA architecture and then RAC advantages here, one of my slide, at this slide. So if you think of end users are connecting from your URL or mobile application or desktop, end users are connecting, they all go to application server. From there, they will go to your database server here. This is your host, your Linux host, one single host. So if you look at, okay, there should be instance 3 here. So if you look at here, this fundamental concept, high availability, failover, load balancing. Let's talk about first high availability. What is high availability? Let's say here also, let's say some users are connecting here, some users are connecting here, some users are connecting here, and same here, some users are connecting here, some users are connecting via here, some users are connecting via here. High availability meaning if this host crashed, all these users, let's say this client 1, client 2, client 3, all these connections are dropped. And if there's a client 4 trying to connect, and this client 4, where he will connect? The server is down. This client will not be allowed to connect. But here, client 1, client 2, client 3 connected to 1, 2, 3. And then via they will go to respective instance. Let's say you have host 1, host 2, and then host 3. Let's say if your host 1 is down, if the client 4 want to connect, the client still can connect to this instance 1 or instance 2. You have 2 more hosts to serve that incoming client connection. High availability. We have multiple hosts. If one host goes down, don't worry. You have a other host to handle that incoming client connection. High availability. Here in this standalone, only one server. That server goes down. Whatever the current client's existing connections will be broken and the new connections also will not be connected. Whereas here, whatever the new coming connections, they can connect to either instance 2 or 3. Host 3 at host 2 or host 3. That's one of the main feature of high availability in case of RAC. Failover. Let's say I just mentioned here client 1, client 2, client 3 connected. And if this instance goes down, the client connections are broken. And here also same client 1, client 2, client 3 are connected. So if this instance goes down, whatever the client connected here, automatically he will be failed over to instance 2 or instance 3. That's one of the RAC feature, automatic failover. This client will not be aware he connected to instance 1, that instance went down or that host went down and his connections are moved to instance 2 or instance 3. It's a transparent application failure. We call it as a TFA, transparent application fail, TAF, and client will continue to do his transaction. And for the end user point of view, he don't know what happened at the back end, but that's be handled by your RAC database. Don't worry, failover is one of the brilliant feature. Load balancing, the other feature, meaning let's say if you have 1,000 connections, like 300 coming here, 300 coming here, and 400 coming here, all will go into this one single server here, this host, and this host will be overloaded, and then the server may crash. And if it's a RAC, we have something called scan. The scan is responsible for making this load balancing. This 1,000 connections will go here, 330 connections will go here, 330 connections, and will go here, 340 connections. So 1,000 connections will be equally divided into all these three hosts. Your host 1, your host 2, your host 3. All three hosts are getting equal connections, equal load. The scan is responsible for equally balancing the load across all the cluster nodes. That's other privileges. The end users, end user connections, end client connections, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, doesn't matter. We have a scan concept we are going to cover in our regular classes. Scan is capable of handling all those connections and load balancing. Those are your main advantages of RAC. Why Oracle strongly recommend to run your database as a RAC other than standalone. And then also Oracle recommend to always follow this MA architecture, maximum availability architecture, meaning production database is RAC. Let's say this is your host 1 and this is your host 2. This is your RAC 1. And then it's a two node RAC. Client 1 want to connect, connection may go to instance 1, or client 2 want to connect, connection go to instance 2, and client 3 comes, connection may go to instance 1 or instance 2. Load balancing, high availability, and then failover, everything is there here. And when you configure DR database for this, again you have to configure as a two node RAC. Like again, host 1, host 2. Why they recommend? Let's say this is your RAC 2, this is your prod, and this is your DR. Let's say this prod database is in New York or Washington DC, and your DR database is somewhere in London. Two different data center. Due to some DR standing your disaster recovery. Due to some disaster meaning anything in this primary data center, production data center, New York, maybe some earthquake or flood or fire or entire this data center gone. So this is a primary and this is a DR standby, DR or standby. And immediately you can make this DR standby as a prod. Whatever the client used to connect here in this New York production database due to production data center crash, and you can make this London DR database as a new prod. That is called something failover. We call it as a failover, meaning we are converted our standby database as a prod. Then this all client will connect to this new prod. That's kind of your business continuity plan. Your business is not stopped. Your business is continue to run because whatever the standby database or the DR database you converted as a new prod by doing this failover. And then your end user clients are connecting to this new production database, which is running from this London data center, and your business is continuing to run. So that's why Oracle recommend you to follow this MA architecture, maximum availability architecture, meaning your production database has to be RAC database, and configured standby database also should be as a RAC database. So having said that, there are many options. You can go with a RAC to standalone. Your production is RAC, your DR is standalone. Or you can go with a RAC to RAC. Production is rack, standalone is rack. You can go with standalone to standalone. If production is standalone, DR also standalone. Or you can go with production is standalone, DR is rack. So all this mix match combination, everything is possible in Oracle. But what is best recommendation is this one, rack to rack. Production also should be rack. Your DR or standby also should be rack. That's your MA architecture, maximum availability architecture. All right. Hope that's clear. Why rack? What are the advantages? What is this MA architecture? What Oracle recommends? All right. Moving on. Your uh, whatever we covered here. If I quickly mention the other questions, what you can expect. What are the types of databases? The just we mentioned two types: standalone database, which is part of our DBA course, and then RAC database, which is part of this RAC course. Standalone and RAC are the two types of database. In standalone, you get subtype standalone without ASM, and then you get standalone with ASM, meaning your database running under OS file system or your database running under ASM file system. In this RAC course, you see RAC database or you may see RAC one node database. These are your different types of databases. Standalone versus RAC or the different types of databases. So what's the difference here? Let's say if I talk about this first one, you have host one where your instance will be running. That instance has a database running under that OS storage. Whatever this database instance, that database is residing under that OS storage. Coming to the second ASM database, we'll be having your ASM instance. That ASM will be having its own storage. ASM storage. And then you are going to configure your database instance. And that database instance is running under that ASM storage. Here your database is running under that OS storage itself. Here this database running under this ASM storage. This ASM storage is managed by this ASM instance. So that's the difference between your database running under OS, database running under file system. ASM file system, OS file system versus ASM file system. That will be covered in our part of the DBA course. In this course, your RAC course, we're going to cover this RAC database and RAC one node database. Meaning, let's say I have 4 node RAC. So here we'll be having your ASM instance 1, ASM instance 2, ASM instance 3, and then ASM instance 4. We have this 4 ASM instance, and then these ASM instance will form this ASM storage. This is the ASM storage. And then we will be running my database instance 1, database instance 2, and database instance 3, and database instance 4. All these database instances are going to access the same database, which will be stored under your ASM storage. That's your RAC database. All the instance will be running. If the client one comes, it can go to your instance 1, it can go to instance 2, it can go to instance 3, or it can go to instance 4. Any one of the instance it will go. What about this RAC one node? RAC one node will be like this: your instance underscore 1, instance underscore 2, instance underscore 3, instance underscore 4. 4 RAC instances, but it says one node. Any one will be up. Let's say your instance one is up and remaining three will be down. Instance two, instance three, instance four will be down. And then all these instances will be accessing the same database, DB. So if the instance one is up, client one will connect to instance one, instance underscore one, and access the database. If instance one is down, instance underscore four will be up. And then client two will connect to that instance underscore four and then access the database. That's a simple answer. Even though RAC database and RAC one database, it's a RAC database, but in RAC database, all the instances will be up and running at a given time. In RAC one node, even though it's a RAC database, but only one instance will be up and running. Why that is? Because the RAC versus RAC one node licensing is very, very costly. RAC licensing is much costlier compared to RAC one node. So any reporting database or any UAT database, those kind of workload, we go with RAC one node. But production database will go with the RAC database. So in case of here standalone, let's say your database, assuming dev DB is your database, you will be running only dev DB here. And in case of ASM, first you will be running plus ASM instance and you will be running your dev DB. Here only database instance and database will be stored under OS. Here dev DB database which will be stored under ASM storage. To manage that ASM storage, you need this ASM instance. Same way for RAC database. If it's a RAC, it's a 4 node RAC, you will be having a plus ASM1, plus ASM2, and plus ASM3, and plus ASM4, and you will be having dev DB1, dev DB2, dev DB4, dev DB3, and dev DB4. There will be 4 database instances and then 4 ASM instances. In case of RAC one node, same concept, ASM 1, 2, 3, 4. And here instead of devdb, it will be devdb underscore 1, devdb underscore 2, and devdb underscore 3, and devdb underscore 4. And here, even though it has a 4 database instance, any one instance will be running. Remaining all will be down. It will not be running. And here the RAC one node licensing is cheaper, but RAC license is very, very costlier. All production workload we run with the RAC database, but some reporting databases or some pre-prod kind of databases will run with the RAC one node. All right. Uh, Going on further, other concept what I wanted to cover is RAC architecture and then RAC networking. So maybe I'll take a pause for today. We'll continue with this tomorrow, RAC architecture and RAC networking, and then the RAC file system. How my data file, redo log, password file, SP file, and my archive logs, system, sysocs, undo temp, where they're located. How that networking, when it comes to networking, your public IP, private IP, scan IP, VIP, and management IP, how they will be configured. And when it comes to RAC, your OLR, OCR, voting disk, and your whatever the shared storage, and how the cluster communication will work. And when it comes to RAC, there will be a lot of cluster resources and cluster daemons, which are your CSSD and CSSD monitor, your CRSD, and then your GIPCD, GPNPD, MDNSD, and so many concepts. Right. So we'll cover these 3 concepts in tomorrow's class. When I start with architecture, there will be a lot of questions, a lot of uh, new things which we'll be talking about. We'll explore more on it. Mostly that we'll be covering this slide here. Okay, this is what I just covered. RAC standalone Oracle restart, RAC one node, RAC, and then this is what how the RAC architecture works. Your public IP, private IP, scan, and your interconnect, your database, how the scan will work, and then how this client communication will work through VIP, through via scan VIP, how the communication will be established. And this is your cluster startup one. From OHST, your level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. In level 1, CSSD agent, CSSD monitor, VARA agent, VARA root agent. In level 2, CSSD, CSSD monitor, CRSD. So your CSSD is your cluster synchronization service daemon. Your CRSD is your cluster ready service daemon. Your CTSSD is cluster time synchronization service daemon. Diskmon, your ACFS, your ASM, GIPCD, uh, grid plug and play, your grid inter-process communication. GIPCD is a grid inter-process communication daemon. And GPNPD, your grid plug and play daemon. Your EVMD, event management. MDNST, your broadcasting. Again, VARA agent or VARA root agent. Your GNS, grid naming service or global naming service. ACFS, scan, and GNS, and Node VIP, network, ASM, ONS, Oracle Notification Service, EONS, Fast Oracle Notification Service, GST, listener, scan listener, service, DB. All this concept part of your rack architecture. So if I start explaining it now, it will be too much. So we'll take a pause here for today. We'll continue tomorrow with all those rack services, rack networking, and rack file system. We'll see how it goes. All right. With that, before I stop it for today, any questions or any queries anyone has so far? All right. If no question, let's take a break. We'll continue tomorrow with further topics. And then post that, we'll continue with our regular classes. And who are interested, feel free to ping me on my WhatsApp number. And then we will continue. Right. So there's a question from Jishan: is active passive rack is same as rack one node? You can just say that active passive, there's nothing called active passive in rack. So you just correlate that active passive. Maybe in networking concept, networking terminologies, we call it as a bonding. NIC1, NIC2, we bond it as a active passive or active active. Link aggregation, LACP, that's active active, and active passive. Kind of you can correlate. Track one node is kind of your active passive. But there's no concept of active passive in rack. All right. Let's take a break, guys. If no question, we'll continue tomorrow. Post that, we'll continue our regular classes as per the schedule. Thank you, everyone. Let's take a break. Bye.